Welcome to Mild Moodcast, a podcast meant to explore mental health through the lens of another human hanging on by a thread. I'm Bianca, a registered mental health counselor intern, soon to be LMHC, here to chat about the topics we don't get enough of. So grab your headphones and let's dive into the crazy world of mental health. It's going to be a wild ride. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 4. If you're looking at me, I was peeking at my computer just to make sure that the recording is happening. I have had so much fun with this little microphone over the last week, just trying to make sure that it records appropriately. It's been picking up some strange feedback that it wasn't before. And I don't know if that's because I moved spaces in the office or if something happened with the microphone. I guess eventually I'm just going to have to get a better quality one. I don't know. Well, thank you for tuning in today. If you're here for the first time, welcome. And again, if you're back, thank you. Today's discussion is about emotional regulation and impulse control. Mostly. I have another topic that I kind of roll into, and I'm going to touch on, chemical seeking and addiction as well. Now, I'm trying to get better at not staring down at my iPad so hard while I'm making a video, but it is difficult. I don't know, someday I'm going to need one of those screens in the background so it doesn't seem like I'm looking away. But I have, as many people do when they plan for podcasts, it is more than just conversation. It requires planning to sit here and go through these topics with you guys because I just want to make sure that I take things into account that you ask for and ensure that I'm giving the right kind of information. So, this might ruffle some feathers, but according to science, there is no direct connection between addiction and ADHD. Dun, dun, dun. Seriously. Instead, addictive disorders are usually caused by something behavioral, something emotional, a life factor, if you will. So meaning it's not the ADHD itself, it's the stress that you're going through. It's the emotions or the lack of wanting to feel those emotions. According to science, not Bianca, so please, don't shoot the messenger. Addictive disorders live on their own. So if a person hyperfixates on something or they're going through an emotion and it requires some form of stimulation, if you choose an addictive substance, the addiction lives on its own. It is not, you are not more likely to become addicted to it because you have ADHD. It's just an addictive substance. So, okay, we understand that our impulse control is relative to ADHD, but addiction specifically is not. How do we learn emotional regulation to avoid this? Wonderful question. Start by getting a therapist. And I know it might not be the most cost effective. And actually, I don't think I've said this yet, but if you've never heard of it, there's a website called Open Path Collective. Now, I didn't actually plan on talking about this, but since I'm talking about affordability, because I know that stops a lot of people, I want to talk about Open Path Collective. It allows you to find therapists in your area. So if you're listening from any state, if you're listening from Florida, great. Hey, how you doing? Go on the website, you fill out their information, there's a membership fee, and the membership fee is $65. Now, you do not have to have a membership to reach out to a therapist. Do with that information what you will. But you put it in there, it's going to ask you if you can afford insurance. The whole purpose of Open Path Collective is it's for the people who can't afford insurance or don't have insurance or have insurance that does not have a mental health benefit. And it's for people who can't afford typical therapy without it because we know that it can go up to $250 an hour. So therapists like me go on OpenPath and we offer our services for less. There's an agreement as a therapist to have a sliding fee scale that you have to stay within in order to see clients through their website. There's no requirement for how many we see. There's no requirement for how often, for how long. The agreement is simply stay within a certain amount of money. So if you go on the website, you type in your zip code, you'd be able to find a therapist that might be able to work with your budget. They're going to ask questions. They're going to say, okay, what do you do for work? What is something that you can afford? And they will say, okay, this is what I have to offer for this length of time. And you can say yes or no. So it's the same therapists that are in your area. If they happen to be on OpenPath Collective, then you get to see them. Any hoodles. So starting by getting a therapist obviously is number one. A lot of times people try to ignore the way they feel, and that's the first problem. If you're ignoring the way something feels, that's called avoidance, which might seem like a really simple concept, but it's genuinely something that stops people with anxiety, people with depression, people experiencing mass amounts of stress from kind of living a normal life. It doesn't feel good, so I don't want to touch it. Now, I want to talk about emotional regulation with 6 skills. Of course, there is a disclaimer. Blah, 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 blah. What the hell was that noise? I don't know. Not quite as upsetting as dun dun dun, but not super cheery either. So the disclaimer is I am not your therapist. I am a therapist. Some of these things might work for you and they may not work for others. In the same way that everybody learns differently, everybody copes differently. We go through different things. And before I get into these 6 skills for emotional regulation, I also want to notate that I use cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. I use solutions-focused therapy. I use internal family systems therapy, depending on the client, depending on the situation. These things may not work for you. You might be a DBT person. You might need art therapy. You might need EMDR. So please know that there are different ways to treat things that people are going through. And my purpose here is not to treat you. It's to hope that some of the things I talk about can be tools in your little toolkit, right? Just giving you things to think about, giving you some things to try, but ultimately, you should have your own therapist. I encourage everybody. Hell, I'm a therapist with a therapist. What does that say? So, if you don't have a therapist, you should get one. If affordability is a problem, reiterating to check out OpenPath Collective. All right, into these 6 skills. The first skill is self-awareness. And it sounds silly, but name what you feel. Examples. I feel sad. I feel hopeless. I feel anxious. I'm angry. Putting a name to it helps us understand it and be aware of what we're experiencing. I feel abandoned. And notice it. Don't judge it. Just sit with it. I believe in one of my earlier episodes, I talked about self-awareness being a bitch. That we will focus on what we should, would, could be doing. And then we can't focus on the thing itself. So with this, it forces you to stop, consider what you're experiencing, and just lay with it for a bit. Number 2, mindful awareness. Mindful awareness looks like reading exercises, meditation, and sensory relaxation. Do with that what you will. Number 3, cognitive reappraisal. That's just a fun way of saying changing your thinking and making it more positive. Cognitive reappraisal. Why they make things so difficult, I don't know. But cognitive distortions feed core beliefs. So I'll get into an example of what that means, because if you've never had therapy, you've probably never heard of cognitive distortions, probably never heard of core beliefs, and that's okay. Here's an example. If I say, I have nothing to do this weekend, my friends only hang out with me because they have to. I have the core belief that I'm unlikable. Core beliefs are the lens we see the world through. If I believe that I'm unlikable, if I believe that I'm unlovable, then my surface distortion is going to fuel that by saying my friends only hang out with me because they have to. So how do I deal with that? I want to meet it with logic. Remember, this is cognitive appraisal. This isn't a whole conversation about core beliefs and cognitive distortions, but an example, I'm a good friend to them and we will hang out when we can next. I'm good to them and they're good to me. I have to challenge saying they only hang out with me because they have to. Do they have to? No, they don't. They like you. It's not like your siblings and you're stuck. Hopefully you like your siblings and you don't want to, not hang out with them. But if it's F them siblings, it's F them siblings. I don't know. Either way, they're not stuck with you. They're there because they value you. And if for some reason they're not, that's a whole other conversation. Number 4, adaptability. When you experience stress, anger, frustration, consider what you'd say to someone that you love. When you feel avoidance, consider what you'd tell them and write it down. And then I want you to think of what you would want someone to tell you. We often speak so negatively to ourselves when we do the smallest thing wrong. If I drop my phone, and I'm guilty, I might say, oh my God, I'm so stupid. Am I stupid? Or did I just drop my phone? Number 5, self-compassion. Self-compassion looks like me time. Time to process. Self-care. Affirmations. Journaling. Don't forget that me time is truly what you make it, and it's so important to have time for just you. Maybe it's a hot shower. Maybe it's a pedicure. Reading the book on the beach. Reading a book in a book nook. Doing something that you enjoy, playing video games. Man, I love playing video games. I don't know where my voice just went, but not here. I am indulging in self-care when I get my toes done, when I get my lashes done, when I get my nails done, and when I play zombies on Call of Duty. One of these things is not like the other, but it makes me feel good. And sometimes once I jump in, I'll do 3 days of zombies because I want to spend that time on myself, and it was purposeful. So self-compassion is incredibly important. And number 6, emotional support. A closed mouth don't get fed. When we don't express ourselves to people because we're afraid of what we think they're going to say, really ask yourself, is this a person that would judge me. That doesn't mean that you have to flood someone with all of the details of your life. But hey, I'm having a really rough day. I don't want to talk about everything, but my home situation is the most frustrating. I'm really stressed out because I've taken a lot of classes. I've had a few panic attacks lately, and I'm not really sure what's causing them. You would be surprised the way other people will say, "Oh my gosh, that's so relatable. I'm nervous when I go out in public too." Whatever it is, whether it's stress about money, stress about relationships, feeling particularly depressed or anxious, there are so many people who are experiencing the same or similar. And when we don't talk about it, we have no idea. We don't live in a society where things are don't ask, don't tell. We live in a time where people are trying to say the thing, say what bothers you. And if you're not comfortable telling just anyone, find yourself a calm friend. Now, don't get me wrong, because I know we love the hype friend. I'm mad and I want somebody to be mad right with me. And that's fine sometimes. We don't always need the hype friend. Sometimes we need the calm friend. Often we need the calm friend. Because if you're going through something and you need someone to talk you down, that's okay. Because your thinking might be offline. It might be full emotion, full reaction. And that friend is going to be there to say, "I hear you. Why don't we try this instead?" But also, being able to talk to someone allows you to process your experience. For those of you listening with ADHD, if you notice that you have to tell the same story to a bunch of different people, it's because, or even over and over again, actually, not even to the same different people always, it's because you're processing it. And that's the way we process. And sometimes we realize different things through each time we've told the story. And we talk about it until we feel okay. And cough, cough, a therapist. I talked about that already, so, I won't push. And also, there's something to be said about preparing yourself for stressful moments while you're calm. And not just something to be said, but it's necessary. I can't be like, "Oh yeah, I need to do some deep breathing." Nope, I don't feel better. Because it's not going to help. Maybe not in that moment. Maybe in other moments, deep breathing helps. But if I have a few different things that I can try, if I set something up with my calm friend to know what to do when I'm in that moment, the benefit can be tremendous. So one thing that I didn't say I wanted to talk about, but it fits with the topic, is interruptions. If you've ever felt frustrated when someone interrupts you, that's not a lack of emotional regulation. It's because you're super focused. So you could be in the middle of a game. You could be in the middle of homework. You could be in the middle of a work project. Someone walks up to you. They try to speak. You might not hear it. Now you have a partner who's frustrated. They tell you that you're rude. They tell you that you never listen. But what they didn't know was you needed time to come out of what you were doing. You were hyper-focusing on something, which is typically what we do when we're being productive. So when we hyperfocus, we have to be prepared for that interruption. Hear me out. We need to be able to pull ourselves away in order to process the conversation. So something that my wife and I practice is saying, is now a good time to ask you this? Or is now a good time to tell you this? Because it gives a person the ability to decide whether or not now is a good time. If it is, great. Yeah, absolutely. Now's a great time. If it's not, you can try saying, can you give me X amount of minutes? And then I'll be ready. If someone walks right up to you and they start blurting things out, they might be 30 words in by the time you're like, wait, what's going on? Or your body goes on autopilot and you're like, yeah, They walk away, you pop up and you think to yourself, I have no idea what they just said. They could have asked you to wash their car. They could have asked you to make them a sandwich. Imagine how disappointed they might be. Because you have no idea what they said, but you responded. Because our bodies we will respond. So if you walk up to someone and you say, is now a good time to talk to you about this? It forces us to pull ourselves away, think about the question, and determine whether or not it is time. I hope that this is something that's useful for you. If it was relatable, definitely let me know. Feel free to leave questions, comments, concerns, real life experiences in the poll, in the comments, on any of my social media pages. And as per always, thank you so much for listening. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks for tuning in to Mild Moodcast. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. If you have any burning questions or topics you'd like me to cover, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find me on YouTube at Mild Moodcast and Instagram at Mild Mood Therapy. Let's keep the conversation going and continue to explore the wonderful world of mental health together. Until next time, stay curious and keep smiling.